Meccano, part number 138. A ship's funnel. Hi folks and welcome back. Script writing has become a bit of my weekly challenge. Some people choose to climb mountains, others choose to learn a new language. Me, it's to attempt to write around 4,000 words a week on different subjects. And to be honest, there are times, like with all challenges, that I struggle to find the mojo, or the script doesn't grab me, or there's very little source material to go from. Some topics really surprise me at how easy they are, while others just find me dead in the water. But it's also running a marathon, not a sprint. You have to set a work day on a time when you stop what you're doing and sit down to do something else. And in my case, it has had to fit around a daily care package which I provided to an ailing mother. But as she's now in a nursing home, it's come as a bit of a shock to the system as I redesign my week. But it's also an escape from the groundhog effect that seems to have enveloped my life right now. And I'm glad I've had the ability to change my life and walk the path that I have. But, like all things, writing is a skill, and one that I've struggled with all my life. That, coupled with my speech impediment, has made the art of communication difficult and strained at times. But it is a skill most people take for granted, and one that YouTube is helping me master, and that's one of the reasons for starting the channel. I want the stress and discomfort that this brings, because that discomfort helps you grow and be stronger. There is a saying, what doesn't break me only makes me stronger. And that is the important thing about being challenged in life. Seek out the things that push your boundaries. Talk to the people whose views are opposed to yours. Allow yourself to live life and be uncomfortable, because it makes you a better, stronger person in the long run. This model is from the late 1960s, and I was trying to find a prototype that it vaguely looks like. As happens with Meccano builds, some things are so obviously a copy of a certain vehicle. The Reliant Regal that I wrote about a while back is a good example. Once a prototype had been found, it was simply a case of researching the story and writing it. But not so in this case. The closest that I can sort of come to is the 1953 Oldsmobile Fiesta convertible, and even that is a push. But does the model need to be based on a perfect match? As long as the build is fun and challenging, is that not enough? And to be honest, it's not a build I greatly enjoyed. It was frustrating and left me with a model that was okay, but not one that will sit on my list of top 10 favourite builds that aren't from the aeroplane constructor set from the 1930s. And that got me thinking, what is this hobby about? And I'm not talking about YouTube here. And when I say hobby, I mean it in a greater sense, encompassing all hobbies. What this build did for me was, for a couple of hours, it stopped me worrying about a number of things that sat on my mind regularly. It allowed me to drift and enjoy the here and now, even if it was not all that enjoyable. It allows me to have enough of a focus to switch off to the load of anxieties that are ever there preying on my mind, to also allow a sense of satisfaction that the challenge was met and bested. It was a moment of enjoying what is not enjoyable. And why is this important? We overthink much of our future, spending time worrying on what has not happened, and in doing so create multiple realities as our brain gears for the worst and dwells on the past. It plans on what might happen, but has not. and frets over what has happened and cannot be changed. And this is normal. Our brain is never at rest. It is a muscle that is in permanent motion. And at times we need to make it focus on the here and now, to be present in what we are doing, not worrying about what has not happened. And that takes time and knowledge to learn that skill. I'm not very good at it right now. And forcing myself to build has been great for calming my illogical and sometimes irrational side. The kitchen is called the heart of the house. And in my childhood home, that was very much the case. When, as a family, we were all at home, we would sit and eat around the dining table. But as my siblings left home one by one, I am the youngest of four, and the family got smaller, we started to eat more in the kitchen. But even before that, we would gather around the table in the kitchen and talk or play games. It is where I learnt to cook, a passion that I still have today. That skill of being able to take basic ingredients and turn them into different dishes. My mother's scales are a set of balance scales. You put the weight on one side and then add the ingredients to the other. They are a set of old sweet shop scales and have been so much part of my life that I know of no time that they weren't in daily use. And early in that teaching of how to cook, I learnt to be accurate in measuring, otherwise the recipe wouldn't work correctly. But have you ever thought about the history of weights? Firstly, weight doesn't exist. Now that's a radical statement, isn't it? Mass exists. Weight is relevant to the reaction of the mass in the gravitational field that it's interacting with. So the next time I go to the doctors and get told I need to lose weight, I'm going to point out that I can't lose weight due to my interaction with the Earth's gravity. I can only lose mass. If you want me to lose weight, please change the gravitational field I'm interacting with. The nurse who's normally lecturing me on my weight problem probably wouldn't understand that. In fact, I'm not sure she has a sense of humour. Units of weight, as we know them, go back over 6,000 years to some of our earliest civilizations. And the basic form of an agreed upon unit was the grain, as in 1 grain of wheat. Over time, this became the shekel, the minna, and the talent. The shekel and the minna were coins, so therefore, at the time of minting, they were a set weight. There were 60 shekels to a minna and 60 minnas to a talent. The Romans used the same system, but they used their coin, the libra, which was smaller in mass and needed 200 to make a talent. From the libra we get the pound, the weight that we used until 1971 in the UK, as it went metric, and still is used in the USA. The French get the blame for the metric system, but the idea was first aired by Simon Steven, the great Dutch mathematician, scientist and engineer, in his book The Tenth, written in 1585, nearly 200 years before the push for the system to be adopted in France. He declared it was only a matter of time before everyone used the decimal system. It gained traction during the French Revolution to replace the plethora of archaic weights and measures that were in use in everyday France at the time. At the same time in America, Thomas Jefferson also proposed the adoption of the system, albeit with the intention of keeping the same unit names as the British system, but with a change in length. Congress never accepted it, and America would go on to use the weights and measures that were used in Great Britain. This model had some problems in the build. The operation is based on the winding of a cord between the dial and the plunger. The winding is then attached to a drive band, or in this case an elastic band, as I had no drive bands of the right size. The action of applying pressure on the bed of the balance makes the dial move. When the weight, or should I say the mass, as I have said before, that weight doesn't exist. No, it'll be fine. Nobody will notice that I said weight. And when the pressure is released, the drive band should force the operation to reverse and reset to zero. In this case, it doesn't. It will weigh, but it won't reset automatically, only manually by hand. This, with the right drive band and possibly better maintained Meccano, should work fine. As another problem I've come across is that of zinc corrosion, making the axle rods just slightly oversized and less likely to turn with ease. This corrosion has slowly been working off as I've used this set more. But some wet and dry sandpaper might not be a bad idea, and polish the axle rods. Engineering needs to be accurate. There are so many examples where mixing units and measurements has led to disaster. The Mars Climate Orbiter in 1999 is an example, where the maths wasn't done correctly. NASA had measured in metric, and an outside contractor had used imperial. Big planets and little spaceships don't play nicely together. The orbiter had an accident. I wonder what the insurance claim for that was. Even a simple case of using the same measurements, as in the case of the Swedish warship Vasa in 1628. All measurements were done in feet. One side of the ship was built using the Swedish foot, that measures 12 inches. The other side was built using the Amsterdam foot, that measures 11 inches, causing the ship to capsize on a maiden voyage within a mile of the port. Weights, measures and engineering have gone hand in hand for all of history, and it doesn't matter if you use the cubit or the meter, as all that matters is everybody understands what you're using and if necessary, why you're using it. Just out of interest, the cubit measured 6 palms multiplied by 4 fingers, giving a measurement of 24 digits, which is anything from 44 centimetres to 52 centimetres. The Roman cubit was up to 120 centimetres. Try that for engineering. I want a box 2 cubits by 2 cubits. And your first thing is to work out how long the cubit is that you're both talking about.